to week 2. This week, we will be reading Chapter 2 of the Johnson text, Stepping In and Out of the Shadows. We will learn about how a leader's personality traits and unmet needs impact moral disengagement. You'll note in the course reading that the author references Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is something that you likely learned about in previous coursework, perhaps in a teacher prep program. But I encourage you to think about how this relates to leadership and specifically ethical leadership. How, if a leader's needs are not met, how might that impact their interaction with others when we think about our lower order needs, such as physiological needs with food, water, perhaps housing. A second is safety, around security and predictability. Next, moving to social needs and belonging. The fourth, we're getting into the higher order of self-esteem or competence and respect, and that's a little bit more relevant to leaders. And then lastly, around self-actualization. And the author postulates that leaders function in those higher levels. And so when those needs aren't met, that plays out in leadership and toxic leadership. I wanted to make a quick note about the readings, that there each week is a required reading from the Johnson text. The additional resources that are listed are optional, and these resources were curated on relevant topics in education. The moral reasoning reflection paper, the assignment number 2, which is due in week 5, focuses on viewing ethical and moral leadership through the analysis of a relevant educational issue. So I encourage you to review the topics and the related resources each week with the backdrop of ethical leadership in mind. You may choose to focus on one of these topics for the assignment, and in that case, those resources will become very relevant. So our discussion board, our first is to reference Hogan's developmental scale personality traits on box 2.1, and think about a leader that you have worked for or interacted with, and without naming that person, of course, describe those traits and how that played out in their leadership. The second discussion board asks you to interact with a quote from the text and justify why you think that that quote is true or not true. I wanted to also highlight, again, the 3 assignments in this course. They are more in the last half of the course, and so I strongly encourage you to begin working on the ethical communication assignment. Again, I noted the moral reasoning reflection paper, so just to kind of have that in mind, you may choose to review the expectations in the syllabus. And then the normative leadership theories impact paper is due at the end of the course in week 8. So I shared this last week, but again wanted to highlight and encourage you to familiarize yourself with the first assignment. There are a couple of resources linked in the assignment description on D2L as well as our syllabus. So in response to this instructor's remarks, kind of post or forum, I'm going to ask you to respond just like you do in the forums or the discussion boards. However, you do not need to respond to colleagues or have an APA citation. The response to instructor remarks the purpose is to simply engage with this opening remarks video, and the grade for these responses is listed in the weekly chat item in the grade book. So please, in response to this video below, please post how you can bring joy, inspiration, humor, or healing in your professional role. And this is in response to this quote. So please be in touch if you have any questions or concerns, or if you need anything, just reach out. Have a great week.